Thank you all very much for participating in 3 wonderful sessions. As I indicated earlier, we started from a global perspective, then we talked about the end user, the educator, and then we ended with Vincent's great presentation on an example of how a technology can really make a difference, both in sport, in esport, and in the educational world. So this is going to be an opportunity for us to just have a little bit of a conversation. So I'm going to ask the first basic question, and that is I'd like each of them to take a minute and talk about how they got involved in esports and what it's meant to them. And I ask that question because part of what we're asking you to think about is, again, not just thinking from a transaction, but building the relationship. And one of the questions to ask is, why do you do what you do? Why are you involved in esports? So that you can understand how to engage that individual consumer or business to understand what their needs are. So let's start with you, Vincent, please.
All right, thank you, Gerald. Like I said, 就像我这个演讲的时候所说的，我最初呢有幸是作为电竞的选手去参与到一线的比赛中。那后面呢，我也做了一段时间的像类似于电竞青训之类的工作。后面呢，我又到了企业里面做过像品牌类的工作，像 marketing 之类的工作，也有幸去做过体育方面。那最终呢，当时 Esports 是 sport 一个非常重要的环节我也非常幸运，就是可以专注于Esports 电竞这么一个子领域，它在我们公司全球的这些的行业应用项目等等这些。那我觉得对我来说呢 ，Esports is passion, Esports is passion, is a dream. Yeah.
Doug?
Thank you. So I started in the education space, like I said, about 2 decades ago, and have been learning and growing along with that space and with the educational technology space. And so my first introduction to esports was probably about 7 years ago, starting to work with schools just on what's coming next, what are they interested in, and this was something they were obviously interested in. So we started to build out our program of what that would look like. And as I met the great folks at NASEF and their fellows and their program, and really started to build my knowledge around it, really got more engaged and started to deepen that understanding and deepen those questions like we talked about in the presentation before. It's about asking questions. So asking a lot of questions of the folks that were involved. And 7 years later, I found myself presenting on esports and education very regularly. I have a group of other old guys like me that play Rocket League probably 3-4 nights a week together from all across the U.S. So really found a good home there and found that community that's so important, not just to us, but to those students.
大家好，我的中文没有这么棒，所以有一点英文。So I'm an educator, and the reason why I went into esports is because of my daughter. As an Asian mom, a female CODM player in Asia is not really popular, and she had a hard time. Furthermore, she's also representing Singapore in softball. That's a lot of training, education, and esports. So her day would go like 7 to 3, and on school, 3 to 6 in sports, and then after that in esports. And she did it. I'm so proud of her. Another fun fact, I cannot game. 我看到游戏我很想吐。所以我教游戏的时候也是，所以来到 NASEF 其实是一个改变。所以我不可以玩游戏的话，我要怎么支持大家？其实 esports 不是专于就是玩游戏，而是那个 ecosystem 那个生态系统。所以我就为那个生态系统而发挥我的能量跟强能。所以这就是我。The game changer.
So we all have different reasons. Mine was I represented a large corporate entity in technology, a company called Broadcom. Many of you probably heard the name. Broadcom and Intel and Qualcomm are the largest chip manufacturers in the world. And my job was to create pipelines for future technologists and engineers to sell more products. And I saw that esports was a fertile ground to find individuals who already understood technology, connected to gameplay, and those are your future employees. And that's where you're going to make your most sales. So we all come from different perspectives, and part of what we're trying to get you to understand is that when you ask people why, who they are, and what their interest is, it helps you better appreciate and understand their need. So in esports, it's a developing field. We all know that a lot of people are trying to get into it. It's a multi-billion-dollar market and industry. Something unique happened this past year, and that's something called the IOC, or the International Olympic Committee. We now have the validation within esports of the Olympics. And in 2027, there will be the worldwide Olympics on esports. I'm interested in the thought of the panelists on how that idea of esports becoming validated by the Olympics is going to change the way you do things, and how you think it'll influence the market itself and the people who are here and how they may want to sell into that market.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Olympic is huge. 奥运真的是一个非常非常大的一个机会。因为我们是有幸之前做过很多届的这个夏季奥运会以及冬季奥运会的项目，每一个项目都是超巨大型的项目，代表着无尽的机会，因为它的影响力是巨大的。奥运它本身就代表了一个这样的一个层级。那我们本身呢，就是从体育、从电竞的这个解决方案出发那当两者呢，目前就是说融为一体的时候呢，自然而然的我们可以去把当时 sports 一些经验，我们的 esports 一些经验很好的把它融会贯通。那电竞的首届奥运会呢，就在2年以后实际上是非常的快的对于这种奥运这种级别的赛事来说呢，我们一般都会提前几年的时间去做布局。那对于当地来说呢，不光是办一届奥运会，不光是需要去准备奥运电竞的场馆，同时呢也有很多基础设施，同时有很多配套设施。人员等等这些需要去做非常充足的筹备，那这些呢都对于企业来说都是非常非常巨大的机会。那我也希望结合我个人的经历做一些简单的分享。那同时对于像电竞的一些organization 来说呢，也是非常非常大的认可，包括对整个电竞体系的这个生态下的从业者们来说，都是非常非常大的认可。我有的时候我就说。如果我当时在打的时候有电竞奥运会就好了，对，那对于现在的选手来说呢，他们可能真的是非常非常的幸运，自己从事的事业能获得奥林匹克的认可，那么他们不光是电竞的选手，可以成为像奥林匹克这个国家队的运动员这样的一个目标发起冲击。我举一个例子，比如说在最近这段时间，蒙古他们的一个电竞俱乐部，整个俱乐部的选手都有机会去代表蒙古这个国家，成为这个项目的这个 national team 的成员和这个队伍。这个我觉得是对于选手、对于俱乐部对于方方面面来说都是非常非常大的一个提升。
So Gerald talks a little bit about the validation, right? That the IOC adopting this, what that means. And I talked a little bit about it during the presentation of how HKMU adopting esports provides validation for K-12. And I think that what we're starting to see is that as more and more legitimate organizations like the IOC start to adopt this, there's that trickle-down effect of at the international level, this is being recognized. If there are national teams that are then being recognized, and then we have colleges and universities that are recognizing this, there's professional scene, it starts to really build that foundation so that the mindset shifts that we've talked about over the course of today, those mindset shifts are smaller, right? Because people are already seeing it legitimized in different spaces. So I think that's really important as we go through the conversations around the IOC. And in addition, I know that the games that they've selected and things like that they're trying to appeal to a worldwide market, but in reality, the games that we play around the world, this is something I've seen a lot in my travels in working in different parts of the world, are very different. So while there might be, in the US, there was a lot of controversy about which games they were selecting, because on the worldwide stage, those games are really popular, but not as popular locally in the US. That's something that when the IOC is having to make those decisions, they've got to weigh the options of what appeals most across the world, not just what appeals most in 1 or 2 markets.
他们都讲完了。So 我很荣幸说，2023年的Olympic Esports 在新加坡举行，所以我去看了一年。其实我发觉最渴望的是，其实，在电竞的那些 participants 有年少的，还有比较年纪大的朋友，他们比赛。So Esports 关键了那个不是年纪，不是 gender。不是身体能不能的那个问题，所以每个人都可以比赛，每个人都可以代表国家去参加那个比赛。那在此呢，我也同意Doc 的说法，说你看，如果你代表了国家，变成在学校方面，学生就会看到那个 future， 他们就对这个比较有兴趣。所以在学习方面 ，as an educator， 我们也看到很多的趋势，就是说家长们也来问，哦，你学校有 Esports 吗？有，哦，什么节目，什么安排？所以我真的是在这3年中看到这一些项目的发展。另外一个是 is an advertisement， 我的朋友就讲说，其实 brand loyalty 是一个很重要的东西。好像说我在教书的时候用的那些科技，学生用的那些科技过后，会特别在家中买那些科技，所以他就讲说，把你的产品带入到我们的世界来，希望你可以去了解说教育的那个趋势，他们需要什么，就是 have a conversation。你跟我讲说你的文件有什么好处，我真的不知道。但是你跟我讲说，我可以怎么带领我的 future 到你的世界里，这是我在看的那个 idea。
US sellers have probably the greatest opportunity with the credibility and the validation of the Olympics. When you think about who are the greatest influencers, who are the people with the most credibility in this world, most people have heard of and know of something called the Olympics. That is a free opportunity to leverage and use the publicity of what the Olympics does to be able to then market and sell your products and services to a huge variety of audiences all over the world. That's something that needs to be taken advantage of. So let me move on to another question here, and that is that if you were to give one piece of advice to the audience here and to the attendees here, what is the one item that you would like to impart to them that they could take away from either your presentation or your thinking around esports and their opportunity?
好，谢谢 Gerald 我也简单的翻译一下，就是当然我也希望很谦虚，就是说有什么样的这个建议给到大家。那我们是一个B2B 的企业，是专注于 LED 的企业但是我想给大家介绍呢，就是 be creative， 就是有创意一些就因为这个电竞它是一个很大的一个分支，那在不同的项目，在不同的国家都有各自的情况，都有各自的偏好，有各自的市场，种种方面。我觉得就是说需要有一个 open-minded 的这么一个思维对于gaming， 对于 esports种种这些去了解当地的市场， 去了解方方面面的情况，去熟悉它，同时呢要更有创意一些。因为它是一个玩的东西，它是一个娱乐的东西，它是一个新的东西它是一个年轻人的东西，它是一个新生代的东西。那我想给大家的一个 takeaway message 可能就是 be creative.
All right, I caught be creative. So I don't speak Mandarin, so I have to, when he says something in English at the end, that's what I hang on to, and I assume that's the whole message. So thank you. So I think one of the biggest things that we've talked about today, I've talked about today, I heard it in some of the other presentations as well, is around those relationships, right? I think that's a really big part of any work that we might do, but what I've seen, especially moving from the education world to the sales world, to the business side, is really understanding that everything is a give and take, right? Everything is a relationship, and that anybody you might meet is going to be willing to tell you their story. You just got to ask that question, right? So ask that question to help understand what is their point of view, what are they trying to do, what are those outcomes that they're looking for, and how can you help? Because the more you help people, the more you listen, the more you ask questions instead of tell, the better off you'll be. Because you'll have the information that you need. So we used to joke every once in a while that in the role I was in prior to this, our job was really just to go in and ask questions from the lens of the educator. And then our sales team would hear the answers very differently than we would. Right, we would hear the answers based on how would we implement that program? What would we do to help them learn, to help them grow? And our sales team would be sitting in the background thinking like, they just said they're going to need devices in 2 years. And I didn't hear that, right? That wasn't the message that I received, but that was the message that our teams were receiving. So understanding and investing the time to understand the work that's going on and build those relationships with the market that you're hoping to serve would be my number one. You can't have that one. I used it.
No, it's in here. So I'm the end consumer. I don't get to buy, I get to feedback. So 我想讲的是那个 B to B to C 的模型。我刚才在我的演讲中有解答有演说，所以我在这里写的是通过合作，but 解答我们这些 end user 所需。所以你现在如果哪一个产品来找我的话，我不了解，但是如果你来给我问题的解答，我会了解。所以他们说的就是 it's a solution-based driven sort of like a market。我需要你们的 R&D， 你们的 ideas 来放在我的教育里面，我的学习里面。The future 已经在改变，我真的不懂说那个 education technology 的变化，我的学生他会比我更先进。所以你们的 input 是最重要的 ，B to B to C.
Got it.
So a final question before we do final comments and wrap up, and that is kind of the opposite of what we just talked about, which is what's the major pitfall? Some of your answers may be a bit redundant and repetitive, but what's the pitfall that the people here have to be aware of in talking about esports to the ultimate purchaser or consumer of their products?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, speaking from my experience, 从我的经验来讲呢，可能有一点就是我觉得比较重要的，然后可能我们也会犯的一些错误，就是没有机会去跟真正的终端去交流。那这个终端不光是产品使用的终端同时也是这个电竞项目或者说是这个游戏的终端去交流。有的时候呢，我们没有办法去跟像比如说这个游戏它的制作人、它的这个发行人等等，它的这些运营去有好的交流我们往往需要跨过一些障碍才可以reach out。那包括对于终端用户来说我们没有全部的机会去到本地去 真正的去做 bonding， 真正的去了解我们的解决方案，我们的种种落地到当地以后是怎么样的一个效果。那同时呢，可能如果说有这样的机会呢，我觉得是需要牢牢的抓住的啊。
All right, Vincent, you have to tell me if I say the same thing that you said. Okay, deal? I think one of the things is rushing to the sale, right, is one thing that we've talked about. Was that?
No, I was talking about end user. Yeah.
Perfect. So rushing to the sale, right? So we talked a little bit about it earlier, but the big thing is understanding that there's a lot of learning that has to take place first before you can sell to that market. And so, in an environment like this where it's very well laid out to be buyers and sellers, it's very different than when you're approaching the customer in the market, right? So when we're approaching the customer in the market, if the first thing that you talk about is the specs, is the product itself, is how many you'd like to sell, all of those things, when you jump to that, you lose the trust of the customer. And so taking the time to build that trust, you might find out through that conversation that they actually don't need your product at all. And it would be better for you to say, hey, it turns out that this is not a good fit for us, but I'd love to, can I call you back in a year? Can I call you back in 5 months? It sounds like maybe there'd be a fit down the road, but today is definitely not the day. And you'll earn that relationship by not rushing to try to make that sale that day, but plant the seed. They know what you do after that conversation. You don't have to walk away with a purchase order. You want to walk away with the relationship more than you want to walk away with the sale.
我心里想的是那种 insurance agent 吗？那个 what's insurance agent Vincent? Insurance
agent.
Yeah, what?
保险的代理
啊，保险代理人的那个想法，对不对？所以当然是 build relationship 比快促销还要好，因为教育方面的那个需求，年年都需要的 ，budget 年年都有的。好像我们的 arena 那个 facilities 的话，是用$35 million to update。所以这种不只是我们一个机构，很多学校的机构都有这种 budget。所以我觉得一是对长远放长线钓大鱼这样的想法。第二呢是 keep up to trend。因为 Esports 的那个成长太快了 ，it's very fast and evolving， 所以你要看未来 rather than now。因为很多产品你们有的话，已经是学生已经看过了，他们现在是讲 what's next, what's new。所以最重要的是有没有什么新的那个发展趋势。Business side is very important。你们的 product 我们也是需要，所以我们也想看到。Relationship, not a quick sale, and then more R&D, please. Look at our needs and then build new products for us.
So, my little summary, this is, as I said, a $1.97 billion market this year. By 2029, it will be $5 billion. The future of your products and who your customers will be around esports, entertainment, AI, VR, etc. The world tomorrow, your future customers are going to be very different than your current customers unless they evolve and they change. So one of the things that we recommend is you need to learn about the field. When I walk around, and with all respect to the people that I have talked to, when I ask questions like, what game do you play? What games can be best played on your products? What do you understand about the world of esports? Most of the answers are, I don't play, I don't know the field, and I don't understand other than the specs of our product. That is not going to be the sustainability of your services and your products in the marketplace today. So what you've heard today amongst the panelists was their perspective from multi-billion-dollar companies down to a school system here in Southeast Asia. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we will be doing an hour of training. What are the questions to ask? How do you assess and look at the ways in which you can improve your market share? What are the questions not just for today, but for tomorrow? And how do you build the relationships that we've all been talking about in moving your work forward so that you can not only add to the bottom line, the ROI, SROI of your business and meet the metrics and the KPIs that you have, but how do you expand that? How do you become relevant in the marketplace today and the marketplace of tomorrow? So tomorrow, as I said, at 3 o'clock, we will be doing a training on what are the questions to ask. What do you need to think about when you want to define who your next buyer is and who your consumer of your product is? And thanks to global sources and our work at NASEF, we will be issuing you, for those that attend, a global certification that you will be able to publicize. It will be a piece of paper, literally, signed by the Vice President of Global Sources and myself as the founder and CEO of NASEF, that you can proudly showcase to your buyers, to your consumers, and to the industry you work in to be able to validate your role within the world and industry of esports. So I encourage you, please, to come, participate, and you will walk away with a certification that will be very, very valuable to you after tomorrow. So thank you for spending the last few hours with us. I want to thank the speakers for their time and their attention, and I want to thank Global Sources. They put on an incredible event. And to the people that we work with, Mimi and Lawrence and Christy and their team, thank you so very much for the effort you put in. Thank you again for attending, and hope it was of value to you.
Thank you very much for the incredible discussion. Shall we move to the Q&A sessions? So if there are any questions from the audiences, please raise your hand and we will pass the microphone to you accordingly.
He's on your level.
Hello, guests. I'm Guest, okay? Today I sit here, just want to, listen to the topic you are talking about. What is attract me to be here? Just because I see the topic, esports education. I don't concern technology, okay? So, first question I would like to ask is, what is the actual relationship between esports and education right now in the world?
He's looking at you. You're in.
我吗？刚才I did show the esports ecosystem， 所以它是就像说我们每次看到的，例如 NBA 这类似EPL， 我们看到只是选手 ，so all the players， 但是真正的不是他们，它只是好像一个 pyramid 的顶端，在下面的就是我们的工作人员。所以在 education， 其实我们以发展他们的兴趣喜爱，所以我们有如果好像arts program， 他们有那些 graphic designer， language， 他们学会怎么写说，例如我是 design tech 的老师，我们就 set up system， 所以science electronics and engineering， 所以在我教的是11岁以上的那个学生，他们就从中用他们的那个 knowledge and understanding 去学习，放在那个世界的那个 their career path， 所以他们真有，所以我们用的是用 esports 是一个 subject area 来跟他们讲，好像可能他们的课程是我们年底有一个比赛。你们用你们专长来arrange for this competition， 所以是很 practical 的那种学习方式模式。Does that answer?
Okay, I understand what you mean. But I think in case esport related to educations must have some meanings, okay? Such as what is the esport is doing in the education? How they solved in the education?
How they solve? Right. 所以
So let me try to get to that.
yeah.
So esports is a unique sport in the world. Almost every sport that we think about is a physical exertion activity. And at the end of the activity, the engagement is done, except for maybe what we might call social emotional learning, relationship development, communication, and some of those kinds of what we call soft skills in education.
I see.
The
But
world-
finally, it also just only competitions for playing games.
Yes. And what you get in a world based on technology is you're getting people to be exposed to the concepts of critical thinking and innovation and technology, and they become the next drivers for the economies of their local community, of their country, and of the world. They are the next employees of your companies. They are the next innovators because the technology that they are playing with, they are absorbing through that concept of intellectual osmosis, the understanding of how they can then generate AI opportunities, VR opportunities, the ways in which the world can integrate and be a better place based upon technology, which impacts everyone in this room in all the sales that occurs. So it's a physical activity because there's a health and wellness piece. There's an intellectual activity. There is an activity-related technology, and bottom line, there's a activity that drives the economic forces of local, regional, and national economies. That is unique to esports versus any other sport in the world.
Okay, thank you. But I have a dream. My dream is how to put esport into academic industries. Okay? That means all the textbook or the knowledge from the education should provide the same kinds of competitions to the students. They play the games, they have the competition, but the games is not just only the general games they are playing at home, but related to what they are learning at school.
So I'll give you one example, and then I'll stop talking, and that is we just did a worldwide competition with Rocket League, but it wasn't to play the game. The competition was that students around the world had to create and code bots to compete to be the best player in Rocket League to win the championship in their country.
It's a STEM.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, audience, for your question, and keep on your dreams. So is there any question still holding on? Once again, thank you very much. We have a question at the front row. Okay.
感谢各位的演讲。然后我想要，其实刚刚 Jennifer 提到一个特别好的点是 from exhibitor，and 因为您其实是就职于国际的学校，然后这其实是一个很好的就是让我们展商的产品能够进入国际学校，然后在国际学校里面，由于学生可能在这边看到这样的产品，从而让他们曝光给了更多的个体及家庭，去让这个品牌意识深入人心，以及让他们了解。然后我看到其实您刚刚那页 slides 也讲到了很多的这样一些品牌以及当地的一些社团嘛，然后其实这个问题也是从商业的角度，希望说您可不可以给一些例子给到我们现场的供应商，如何能够更好的参与到，比如说像新加坡以及东南亚的这些国际学校的采购项目，或者类似的这样一些您的 insight 可以分享给大家呢？
我要升级了。其实我的 CEO 在我出门前就讲说 ，Jen 看一看，叫我回去学校的时候，在教书上面也写作一个Esports curriculum。所以为了answer你这个问题，其实如果你有一个 idea 一个想法，现在就可以 把那个 proposal make an appointment with schools， 他们很想了解有什么。所以我觉得国际学校他们的那个想法都很 forward thinking， 他们想要知道说，从你们的商品当中我有什么 inspiration， 还是好像 Microsoft， 我一个朋友他在 Microsoft， 他是一个老师，他去 Microsoft 做工，他们请他的原因是从一个教书方面的角度，怎么把我的 product redo it into something for students。所以我相信你们也是有这样的那种想法，对不对？你们请我吧，请一个教师把你们的 product make it relevant for education， 因为我们不懂你的 product 是什么，我们不是那个 R&D specialist， 但是我们是用户的 specialist。现在马上立刻 scan 我的 QR code 就可以了。
I'm going to end with one final comment. Some of you have heard the term and know what the word ikigai is. Ikigai is a philosophy that is about how to connect purpose and meaning in life with your skill sets, your learning, your education, and your responsibility to your children, your family, and to society. Esports is uniquely positioned to understand and implement the concept of what Ikigai stands for. And Ikigai is just one philosophy by one culture, but that concept exists throughout the world. And it's a responsibility that esports takes that is very, very different than any other sport. And it combines play, competition, education, learning, social value, and purpose and meaning. And that is very unique in why esports is thriving and will continue to thrive and grow and be relevant to everyone that's here. So again, thank you all very much and hope to see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.